Welcome to World Talk Brief.
So, the U.S. government has just unsealed a massive trove of documents related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And as you can imagine, the list of his known associates has grown a lot. But look, before we dive into any of this, there's something absolutely crucial we all need to understand. Just because someone's name appears in these documents does not mean they're guilty of a crime. That is the critical lens we have to use as we look at all of this information.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll talk about what these documents actually are. Then, we're going to explore the different worlds Epstein moved in. We're talking titans of tech and finance, the corridors of political power, and even influential figures from media and culture. And finally, we'll try to connect the dots and ask, what does it all really mean?
So first up, what are these documents? Well, they're part of a huge release from the government's investigation, and they give us probably the most expansive look we've ever had into Epstein's network. But it's really important to remember, a lot of this information is unverified.
Okay, so let's start with the intersection of big money and big tech. This is a world where Epstein clearly had some incredibly deep connections. And honestly, some of the biggest names in the industry show up in these files.
And one of the first names that really jumps out is Elon Musk. His connection to Epstein seems to come from a series of emails that reveal, well, let's just say a desire for a very particular kind of social scene.
In these emails from back in 2012, Musk is asking Epstein about the wildest party, saying he wants to let loose. Now, Musk has responded to this. He's acknowledged that these emails could be used to smear my name, but he also made a point to emphasize the need to prosecute anyone who actually committed crimes with Epstein.
Another tech giant mentioned is Bill Gates. But his connection is a lot more complex, and frankly, pretty bizarre. It involves these unsent draft emails that were actually written by Epstein himself.
So, the documents include these two strange unsent draft emails from 2013 written by Epstein. One of them mentions getting medicine for Gates after alleged sex with Russian girls. A spokesperson for Gates has called these claims absurd and completely false. But his ex-wife, Melinda French Gates, has said that this news brings up memories of painful times from their marriage.
And this pattern of powerful entrepreneurs in Epstein's orbit, it just continues. Next up, we have Virgin Group founder Richard Branson.
There's one particular email that's really drawn a lot of attention. In 2013, Branson wrote to Epstein, "As long as you bring your harem." Now, Virgin Group has since issued a clarification on this, stating that the term harem was actually a reference to 3 of Epstein's adult female staff members.
And the list of powerful figures just keeps going. You see Google co-founder Sergey Brin, who visited Epstein's island, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who apparently planned a family visit. And for some, the consequences have been very real. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers resigned from several posts, admitting his association was a misguided decision. And Brad Karp, the chairman of a major law firm, stepped down after emails surfaced that allegedly discussed Epstein's 2008 plea deal.
But Epstein's influence didn't stop with business. The documents make it pretty clear he also had access to the highest levels of politics and even royalty.
2 former U.S. presidents actually feature in the files, but the context for each is really different. Donald Trump's name comes up hundreds of times, but it's almost all in unverified tips to an FBI tip line. He's always denied wrongdoing. Bill Clinton, on the other hand, is seen in photos with Epstein from the 90s and early 2000s. His team says he cut ties long before the full scope of Epstein's crimes was ever known.
Now turning to the British royal family, Prince Andrew is mentioned. There are photos in the files that reportedly show him kneeling over an unidentified woman. He has, of course, always denied any wrongdoing. His ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, also appears in emails from 2009 calling Epstein a legend and asking to meet for tea, even while he was under house arrest.
For the British politician Lord Mandelson, the release of these files has had some immediate and pretty severe consequences. The documents suggest payments of $75,000 from Epstein to accounts linked to him. That's triggered a police investigation. And in the wake of all this, Lord Mandelson has announced he will step down from the House of Lords, while still maintaining he was never culpable or complicit in Epstein's crimes.
And these political connections, they really span the globe. You see former Trump advisor Steve Bannon messaging with Epstein about rebuilding your image. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak kept corresponding with him even after his 2008 conviction. And for some, the consequences came fast. Miroslav Lajčák resigned as Slovakia's national security advisor after his texts with Epstein about girls came to light.
All right, for our final group, let's explore the names that have emerged from the worlds of entertainment, academia, and wellness. This just shows how incredibly far-reaching Epstein's network really was. Epstein's network also stretched right into Hollywood and sports. Director Brett Ratner is seen in a photo with him. The co-owner of the New York Giants, Steve Tisch, sent an email asking if a woman was a professional. And Casey Wasserman, who's the chairman of the LA 2028 Olympics, has expressed deep regret for flirty emails he sent to Ghislaine Maxwell way back in 2003.
The connections also extend into some pretty unexpected places, like intellectual and wellness circles. You've got the famed linguist Noam Chomsky, who in 2019 advised Epstein to ignore what he called the hysteria around abuse allegations. Anti-aging influencer Peter Attia exchanged hundreds of emails with Epstein, including some crass jokes. And the author Deepak Chopra invited Epstein to Israel, suggesting he bring your girls and use a fake name.
And one particular email exchange attributed to Chopra contains this really bizarre line: "God is a construct, cute girls are real." In response to all this, Chopra stated that his emails reflected poor judgment and tone, but he's flatly denied any involvement in criminal conduct.
So, having seen this wide array of names and connections, let's just take a step back for a second and think about what this all really means.
I mean, really, beyond the headlines and all the famous names, what is the real story that these documents are telling us?
Well, ultimately, these files paint a picture of a man who built an astonishingly vast network that cut across pretty much every sector of power and influence imaginable. And while we have to keep repeating that association is not guilt, this release does raise some deeply uncomfortable questions. It forces us all to look at the judgment of public figures who chose to associate with a convicted sex offender, many of them long after his crimes were public knowledge. And that, maybe, is the most crucial takeaway of all.
Subscribe to World Talk Brief for more clear, thoughtful explanations. World Talk Brief, news explained without the noise.